You're sitting with someone you know, maybe a friend, a coworker, someone you see all the time, and then something small happens. The waiter brings the wrong order, a cashier moves a little too slowly, someone cuts them off mid-sentence. Nothing dramatic, just a tiny inconvenience. But their reaction feels strangely revealing. Maybe their voice suddenly sharpens, maybe they roll their eyes at the cashier, maybe they laugh it off. But there's a flash of irritation that disappears a second later, and sometimes the reaction is so small. Most people miss it completely. But once you notice it, you can't unsee it. Because your brain just picked up something important. Not the situation. The pattern behind their reaction. Most people think you understand someone's character during big moments, success, failure, conflict. But those moments are rare. And when they happen, people are usually very aware of how they look. They're careful, controlled. Your brain actually learns far more from something smaller. The reactions people don't plan. Moments where someone responds before they have time to manage their image. Two people can experience the exact same situation. One apologizes instantly. The other blames everyone around them. That difference isn't random, it's a pattern. Psychologists call these low-control moments. Situations where someone reacts before their social mask turns back on. Before they remember how they're supposed to behave. And in that split second, their default personality leaks out. The strange part is, these tiny moments often reveal more about someone than years of conversation. Your brain is constantly scanning people for patterns. And these reactions are some of the clearest signals it finds. And once you know what to look for, you start noticing these signals everywhere. In friends, co-workers, even people you just met, because character almost never reveals itself in dramatic speeches. It leaks out in tiny reactions. People think no one noticed. And the first small moment that quietly exposes someone's real character happens more often than people realize. Once you start noticing these reactions, a strange pattern appears. The moments that reveal the most about someone are usually the ones they think don't matter at all. The clearest signal of character appears when someone has nothing to gain and no reason to perform. No audience, no reputation at stake. Just a small situation most people would forget. Watch what happens the next time you're at a cafe. The barista gets the order slightly wrong. One person smiles and says, "No worries." Another person sighs loudly, suddenly speaks slower, like the mistake proves the barista is incompetent. The order mistake is small, but the reaction reveals something much bigger. Respect, or quiet entitlement. You'll see another revealing moment when someone is gently corrected. You mention a small detail they got wrong in a conversation. Some people pause for a second. Then they nod. "Ah, you're right." But others react instantly. They defend the original point. They explain why they were technically correct. Or they quickly shift the conversation somewhere else. The correction is small, but the reaction reveals something deeper. How safe someone feels being wrong. There's another moment that exposes the same pattern. Waiting. A slow line at the store. Traffic moving an inch at a time. A plan that changes last minute. Some people stay relaxed. Others become irritated almost immediately. Tapping fingers, sighing, scanning for someone to blame. The inconvenience is minor, but the reaction exposes a person's default setting. The emotional response they fall back on when nothing is forcing them to behave. And when these reactions repeat across situations, they stop being random behavior. They become a pattern. Small reactions repeat because they come from emotional habits. And once you start noticing them, something interesting happens. It becomes surprisingly easy to predict how someone will behave later. The uncomfortable truth is, people are forming these judgments about you too, because these tiny moments are constantly sending signals. Most people just don't realize it. And one of the most revealing reactions shows up in a moment people almost always ignore, and the next small moment that exposes someone's real character is even harder to fake. So why do these tiny moments reveal so much about someone? Because in those split seconds, the part of the brain that manages your image hasn't turned on yet. A completely different system takes over. One system is the edited version of you. The one that pauses before speaking, the one that adjusts your tone, the one that manages how you appear to other people. This version of you is careful, but it's also slow. It needs a moment to step in. And then there's the other system, the automatic one. This system reacts instantly, before you have time to filter the reaction, before you remember how you're supposed to behave. When things move slowly, you can step in and control how you respond. You choose your words. You soften your tone. You present the version of yourself you want people to see, but small. Your unexpected moments don't give you that time. The waiter gets your order wrong. Someone challenges your opinion in front of other people. The line stops moving when you're already in a rush. Your brain has to respond immediately. And in that first second, the automatic system answers first. Not the version of you that's performing. The version built from your repeated reactions. Think about the last time someone corrected you in public. Did your first instinct feel calm or defensive? That reaction came before you had time to think. And it wasn't random. These reactions aren't random. They're the responses your brain has rehearsed the most. If irritation shows up quickly, it's been practiced. If defensiveness appears instantly, it's familiar. If patience comes naturally, that's been reinforced too, which means in these small moments, you're not seeing a temporary mood, you're seeing a default reaction. And the uncomfortable truth is, other people are reading these moments in you just as easily, because once you notice someone's default reaction, you start seeing the same pattern repeat everywhere. And once you recognize these automatic reactions, you can often predict how someone will behave in much bigger situations later. And one of the easiest automatic reactions to spot shows up in a situation almost everyone experiences every day. Here's where this pattern becomes more powerful and harder to escape. These small reactions don't stay small. They repeat. And every time they repeat, your brain strengthens them. What starts as a quick reaction slowly turns into a consistent pattern. And then, without noticing, it starts to feel like part of who you are. Take irritation. At first it shows up in small moments, a delay, a mistake, a minor inconvenience. But after a while it stops being about the situation. You start expecting things to go wrong. You notice delays instantly. Even neutral moments begin to feel irritating. Now it's not just a reaction. It's the way you experience everyday life. The same thing happens with defensiveness. At first it's just a quick response when someone corrects you. But over time it becomes harder for people to be honest with you. Because every correction starts to feel like an attack. Even when it isn't. Think about the last time you got slightly irritated over something small. Did it feel justified, even if it wasn't? The feeling matters. Because here's the part most people don't realize. Your brain is constantly training itself through these reactions. If a defensive reaction protects your ego even once, your brain tags it as, use this again. If irritation gives you a sense of control, even briefly, your brain remembers it. So the reaction gets faster, stronger, more automatic. And the dangerous part is, once a reaction becomes automatic, you don't feel like you're choosing it anymore. It just feels natural. This is why even self-aware people get stuck in these patterns. Because awareness comes after the reaction. By the time you notice it, it's already done. And the longer a pattern repeats, the more it stops feeling like something you do, and starts feeling like who you are. That's how small reactions turn into identity. Not through big decisions, but through repetition. Because at that point, it doesn't feel like a reaction anymore. It feels justified. It feels correct. It feels like you. And there's one specific reaction that accelerates this process faster than most people realize. And the next small behavior that reveals this pattern is one most people completely overlook. Once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. You stop listening to what people say about themselves and start watching what they do when they're not thinking. Because that's where the real signal is. Not in explanations. Not in long conversations. In reactions. So instead of asking, "What kind of person is this?" you start asking a different question. What is their default reaction? Watch what happens the next time you're around someone. A small mistake, a slight inconvenience, a moment where things don't go their way. How fast does irritation show up? How do they respond when they're slightly uncomfortable? What happens when they're wrong, or when no one important is watching? Because those reactions aren't random. Different situations, same reaction. That's when it stops being behavior and starts being a pattern. And once you start noticing these patterns, something else becomes clear. It becomes predictable. You're no longer reacting to isolated moments. You're reading a consistent internal script. And then the shift turns inward. You start noticing your own reactions. Not the ones you explain later, the ones that show up instantly. The flash of irritation, the urge to correct someone mid-conversation, the need to defend, or the instinct to withdraw. Think about your last reaction to something small going wrong. Did it feel automatic or intentional? That first reaction tells you more about who you are than anything you say about yourself. And the uncomfortable part is, other people can see these patterns in you too. Which means the personality you think you're showing isn't always the one people experience. Most people either justify their reactions or try to suppress them. But neither creates change. Seeing the pattern clearly does. Because in that small gap between reaction and awareness, something important happens. You're no longer fully controlled by it. The reaction is still there, but now you can see it. And once you can see the pattern clearly, it stops running automatically. And there's one final small moment that reveals this pattern faster than anything else. And the next moment that exposes someone's true character is one almost everyone ignores. There's one moment that reveals someone's character faster than almost anything else. And almost no one pays attention to it. It's not when things go wrong. It's not when someone is under pressure. It's the moment right after the reaction. When everything has already happened, and there's a brief window to notice it. Watch closely. Think about the last time you reacted to something small. A mistake. A delay. Someone saying something you didn't like. What happened right after? Some people move on instantly. No pause, no reflection. The reaction feels justified, so it stays unquestioned. But others do something different. They catch it, even for a second. You'll hear something small, but revealing. Yeah, that was a bit unnecessary. I didn't need to react like that. Or they quietly adjust their tone after the moment has passed. And that moment matters more than the reaction itself. Because it reveals something deeper than behavior. It reveals self-awareness. If you're starting to notice these patterns, subscribe. Because this is the kind of thing that changes how you see people, permanently. And that ability is rare, because most people don't question their reactions. They become them.